Welcome home to St. Anne's.
It's all good. Because you guys have the most graceful priest in the
We
world.
want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sunday.
Probably should be used
Please
to
be
at
sure to
this
hit
point.
subscribe to
I don't
receive
even know
our
if I need to
sermons.
explain
We can't
anything,
wait
but
to
I'm
meet
going
you.
to just anyway to make it feel better. Because I'm graceful, I tripped yesterday and did something to my left leg. I don't know what, but it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. And it's better than 5 years ago, because 5 years ago today, I was in active labor, and I was trying not to have a baby, and so we were all really, really nervous during the Easter service. So good news, I'm not in labor. So we're going to be just fine. All right, hallelujah, hallelujah, the Lord is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. That's the Christian version of Happy Easter. So there we have it. This morning is Easter Sunday, and so we're all very, very excited because it's been a long journey to get here. And so we started with Palm Sunday, right, last Sunday, and it seems like a whole lifetime, right, between when we're joyfully entering into Jerusalem with palms and we're singing, and it's super, super exciting. And then we've got Maundy Thursday, and it's starting to get a little bit more real. And then we've got Good Friday, and then silence. Silence for 3 days. There's nothing. And then suddenly we have this story. And this is an incredibly powerful story. And I came across something the other day that said, if we really want to make our Easter service more biblical, we're going to have it at sunrise and only women can be there. But we're not going to do that here. We're going to do it the fun way. And so here's the story of Mary. And I love this story of Mary because this is us, right? So her last act of worship, the last thing that she can do is go to the tomb and prepare the body. So she's going to go early in the morning, and she's going to do kind of her last goodbyes to her best friend. Because this is all she has left, right? We've had the crucifixion. It was horrible. It was awful. It was traumatic. There's no way for any of us to really, truly understand the trauma of Good Friday. We live through it every year, but I'm not sure we really, truly understand it. And so the last thing that she can do is go prepare the body. So she's going to go and she's going to do that. And she gets there early in the morning, and it's gone. So the last thing that she could have done to say goodbye to her best friend is gone. It's stolen from her. So I want us to take a minute and really grasp that, because this is the last thing that she could do. Can you imagine the most beloved person in the world to you? You go to their funeral and they're not there. You show up to do your last goodbye and you can't. That's the last thing that you have, and she doesn't have it. So you can imagine the trauma of this moment for her. And she's so engulfed in her trauma and her pain and her grief that when a man calls out to her and says, "What are you doing?" What does she think? He's the gardener. I mean, she doesn't understand who it is. She does not grasp who it is, because in the depths of her grief, she cannot grasp who that person is. And that's incredibly powerful, because when she does realize who it was, when does she realize who it is? When he calls her name. When he calls out her name, then suddenly she realizes who it is. And that's true for all of us. It's not until we are so deep and dark into the depths of our grief, and God calls us out of it, and God says, "Your name. I know who you are. You might not know who I am, but I know who you are." And when God says our name, then we recognize. And what is her first reaction? Her first reaction is to hold on to him, because that's all she has. She's like, "Oh my gosh, here he is. I'm never letting go of this moment again." Again, I want you to take a step to your most grief-filled moment. We all have them. your most grief-filled moment. And what if the one person who could end that grief was right there in front of you? What would you do? You cling to them because you don't want to go through that grief again. You want to go back to the way that it was, right? Because that's what we do. That's what we do as humans. We always want to go back to the way that things were. And that's what she says to him. And he says, no. That's not what we're going to do. Because this is no longer Jesus, her best friend. This is Christ the Lord, the Savior of everybody. And that's a big shift. And it's one that intellectually, he's been preparing her for this whole time. But it's not until this moment that she really, truly grasps that Jesus is no longer hers. Jesus is the Christ, and that's all of ours. And I want us to hear this because here's the thing. God calls her to let go. God calls her to take a step forward, an unknown, terrifying, scary step forward, and go into the future. And that's terrifying, folks. And we all know it's terrifying because we've all hit those moments where we do not want to move forward, right? And here's an interesting thing about the human brain. The human brain does not like change. You could be in the worst, horrific situation, but you know it, you understand it, you know how to survive it, and the idea of changing it is terrifying. So we will do anything to cling to the past and not change. Anything. And yet, that's not what we're called to be. That's not what we're called to do. We're not called to cling to the past. We're called to step into an unknown but incredible, beautiful future. And that's a scary thing to do. And it's not until God calls our name and says, no, really, we're not going back there. You're going here. That we have the courage to take that step and do that. So everyone here, in some way, is on a precipice. Every single one of us here. Every single one of us. So I want you to think about that. I want you to ask yourself, what is it that I'm clinging to violently? I will not let it go, even though it may not be that great. But I know it. I understand it. I know I can live through this. Right? We're all there. But what if? What if that's not what God calls us to? What if God calls our name really, really loudly, so loudly that we can no longer mistake God for the gardener? Because that's what we want to do, right? We can see God all we want in the world, but we can justify that. We can explain it away because we're good intellectuals and we're good Episcopalians and we understand things. That's not God. That's just, it's a sunny day. Things happen, right? We can intellectualize it all we want, thus making us ignore it. We see God as the gardener all the time. All the time. But today, I want you to hear your name being yelled at you so loudly, so incredibly loudly that you have to turn around. You have to turn around and recognize that God is calling you. Because we're all where Mary was. We all want to romanticize and go back to Palm Sunday because Palm Sunday feels good, right? We all love parades. It feels awesome. But none of us are called Palm Sunday. We're all called to Easter. We are an Easter people. And Easter people means change. It means scary, unsure change. It means stepping out on that precipice and trusting that something is going to be there to catch us. So here's what I ask you to do. I ask you to trust. I ask you to have hope that God does not call us into a scarier future. God doesn't. God is there. God is there calling us into a future that is so beautiful, so bright, that it's an Easter morning. I ask you to step out. I ask you to hear your name yelled so loudly that you know it's not the gardener. And I got my purple people beater, so it has a name. It is the purple people beater because even if I can't walk, I can hit you.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.